Okay, day 92, Braverman, Haiti, and me. Today I'm going to explore how you can use a natural disaster, and sometimes you can even create a natural disaster to simulate a invasion. As a matter of fact, you can get a lot of the work normally that you'd have to do with an invasion done by the natural disaster, cutting off communications, cutting off roads, collapsing a lot of buildings and killing a lot of the enemy. It also helps move and migrate people from areas that you want to take control of. So again, I have to just talk in cold, rational terms here about the objectives of military objectives versus civilian objectives. And the military is trained to follow orders and execute the objectives set out by the commanders. There's no choice in the matter. It's insubordination, and it's not very fun if you don't follow orders. So I've mentioned this before, but I'll just say it again. The Soviet Union used peaceful nuclear explosions 715 times in the short period of the USSR after nuclear devices were invented to the fall of the Berlin Wall. So again, you can look at the 2004 tsunami in Thailand. You can look at the Haiti earthquake and make your own decisions. I will just submit that there have been many, many peaceful nuclear explosions, underground explosions, which governments admit to, Pakistan, India, off the coast of South Africa, etc. So you make your own choices. But you can even cause them through other means, like you can ram a barge into a levee, let's say, in New Orleans, and cause flooding. So there's many different ways that you can cause a natural disaster. So I'm going to explore, as I said, a Team Rubicon, which is kind of a play on the words Henry Kissinger's old red teams. So here's Team Rubicon. At the center of it all is going to be Peter Thiel. You'll probably remember him from the Republican convention. Now, David Petraeus joins Team Rubicon, which is going to be two guys. It's going to be Jake Wood and William McNulty in 2013. My assertion here is going to be that in those emails between Hillary and David Petraeus, you're going to see the activities of Team Rubicon, and that the activities start actually in 2010 for this operation here. Team Rubicon, if you don't know, is on the ground in 3 days after the Haiti earthquake, and it's a sniper team. As a matter of fact, these two Marine sniper team. These two guys are Marine snipers. Now, you probably might have seen this Life of Clay Hunt before. This is Clay Hunt, because 60 Minutes did a big expose on his life and suicide or death, which is, I question the suicide there. You'll also find many members from his sniper team unit also died, one at a time in situations. So anyway, this is what I call a David Petraeus kind of movie squad. He used a lot of these guys with kind of the square-jawed looks, the real good-looking guys and everything, for doing these military shows for the senators on the Senate Armed Foreign Relations Committee. And he would say, I want to see their pictures. I want to make sure they look, good and they look military and so forth when he staged these shows. Now, McNulty down here is more of a CIA intelligence guy. He worked for DIA, but I mean, it's all the same thing. And you're going to have these guys going around Haiti during the day, taking photographs of, helping and so forth. But at night, these guys David wrote the book on night attacks. And I'll just summarize his book that I read, Counterinsurgency. It's all about kidnappings and insertions into areas and what they call extractions, taking people out where no people are even killed. Now, you can't explain to me how you go into a hostile area, like let's say Iraq or Afghanistan, go in with your special forces team and come out with, let's say you're going to kidnap Peter Thiel, with not a shot being fired, unless you do one thing. Unless you fly over the target with an incapacitant and spray the target like they did at Entebbe in the barracks, with an incapacitating gas, and then you go in and you get the Sleeping Beauty that you want to take out. And that's how it's done, actually. And the Porton Down, I don't know, for people who remember earlier versions, Porton Down in England was actually the place that tested this way back when, with sarin gas and how much sarin gas you could give someone to incapacitate them before killing them. They actually had many cases of people being killed. So this is kind of special forces, maybe semi-classified stuff, but they actually sprayed an English town with sarin over a period of time, and I can't remember the name of it, a coastal town. Anyway, like I said, this is Henry Kissinger's Red Team all over again. These are the Chile teams, the teams that went into Argentina, etc. And what you do is you eliminate political opposition. Normally, without a natural disaster, you send in the teams. At night, they go out and they, do the assassinations. Petraeus changed the formula with counterinsurgency, which is go get them, because you could do this spraying, go get the target, let's say it's Peter, go get the target, torture him, and find out who all the other people are in the network. Then kill him, and then go get the next one and torture them, and so forth. So you build this network called friend of a friend, or they call it metadata. You build this metadata network, and that way you get everybody, okay? I don't know if that makes sense. I probably should have had a graph to explain that, because it's a little bit. But anyway, you don't send a sniper team 3 days after the earthquake, a crack sniper team. And if you look at the other people involved in this, they're going to be involved in the Katrina earthquake and so forth. This is a crack team. You don't send them in. It doesn't form, ad hoc 3 days after the earthquake. You're also going to find them at Katrina. So Peter, the reason why this is important is they use this software from Planeteer, which is CIA-backed software written by the CIA, to find all the, basically, opposition. I'm going to say it right now. They're going to find the opposition. They're either going to be kidnapping or killing. Those are the only two choices you get on this kind of a team. Kidnapping or killing opposition leaders to Haiti. I'll just say it right out. That's what they were doing there. Either kill or kidnap, and I don't know the answer. Now, these guys end up committing suicide an awful lot and getting shot at the gate an awful lot by snipers on these teams. And eventually these guys are going to learn that people like this, like David Petraeus, are using you. And I feel bad for soldiers in this position. My dad was in Guadalcanal. You get used, and then they get rid of you. They dispose of you. And you'll find all kinds of stories where special forces guys getting thrown off helicopters or getting shot or overdosing. All three of them or both of them overdose at the same time in some remote place. And that's what they're doing. They're getting rid of the guys who are doing the dirty work for these guys. Or a bombing. That's another favorite. Do a bombing or a car wreck, something like that. So anyway, now I'm going to get to Planeteer. Planeteer, that being the CIA software, it's for tracking terrorists. It was written by the CIA. There it is, right there. Where are the terrorists going? And then what are their associations? Like that metadata I was talking about. Who's a friend of who over here? Where's their Facebook? So what Peter did was he brought in with his software, which was a big Clinton Foundation donor as well, by the way. You bring in Facebook, you bring in PayPal, you bring in emails like we've been talking about. Planeteer basically does what I try to do on this show or on this series, bring together and connect the dots, basically, to track terrorists. As I've said before, it came out of what they call the Total Information Awareness Program in 2004 that Admiral Poindexter ran. Well, that's when it was shut down. I think it started in 2002. The whole idea was deploy these little mini satellites, and the mini satellites sit between the high, rotating geostationary satellites, and they're close to the ground. And what you do is you deploy these quantum dots, kind of like little sprinkles that go down, and they attach to the cars of enemy combatants, and they attach to people, and they attach to different things. And by deploying different dots that frequency on different levels, you can have associations. So if you did it at a wedding, you would get a lot of friends. If you did it on the battlefield, you'd get a lot of the battlefield equipment. But if somebody had both the red and the green, that means that they were at the wedding and at the military exercise. That means you could either hit them here or hit them at the wedding with a drone. So you see a drone in here somewhere. There's the drone footage, yeah. So that's the idea, is using these little these are the size of you can hold them in your hand, these little cube satellites. So you're going to find out that there's a lot of volunteers, and they're going to show you pictures of the volunteers in Haiti for Rubicon. But the core group is a crack, highly trained team of mercenaries, basically. So this is going to be just like Osprey Global, just like DynCorp. DynCorp's going to be more your police force, and this is the crack team that goes in and gets everybody in those first couple months, and then they're out of there, and then you bring in DynCorp. Sort of like the Marines and the Army. The Marines go in, clear everything out at Guadalcanal, and then the Army comes in at Guadalcanal. Now, my dad fought at New Georgia, and the Marines weren't there, or they were off to the side, and they got a lot of the same experiences the Marines get when they land. So it's land, establish a beachhead, expand your footprint. That's what the Marines do. The Army comes in and kind of maintains a perimeter. The same sort of idea here. Team Rubicon and Osprey Global are the Marines in this analogy. Okay, and people ask questions if you want to, but I do believe it's for this reason. I do believe that in the first initial months, it's the total. This goes back to the Israeli brigade in the Negev. When you go in and you try to take out your political opponents, you not only take out your opponent, you harvest his organs, you sell his kids, you abuse his wife, that whole kind of mentality. And I keep saying we don't need to have, as Israelis, we don't need to have this mentality anymore. We don't have that defense need anymore. I think Israel's quite secure. We don't have to. And this, because what all this creates is blowback. It's great to have all the spirit cooking and say, oh yeah, we ate the hearts of our enemies, or we made money off the hearts of our enemies, but it ends up in blowback. It just gets worse. So I say go to the Geneva Convention. That's why they wrote it. So here's what I think. Looking at the tapes and looking at news articles, I think Team Rubicon is going to come in here. It's a very military term. Caesar crossed the Rubicon, right? They're the first ones in, basically, is what the Team Rubicon moniker is all about. And you're going to have them staying in hospitals over the night, and you're going to have them going out and doing night raids all around Port-au-Prince, eliminating political opponents. Now, I'm not saying they're killing them. I'm saying they're probably kidnapping them, and then the kidnapped, when they get enough of them rounded up, 12 or 15 of them, they're going to helicopter them over to Mirabalais, and they're going to be held there until the organ harvest is necessary. And because this was not built, this airstrip in Cap Haitien was not built yet, you're going to find a military helicopter taking them out to probably, I think they're over to Cuba, over to Guantanamo. So I think it's going to be a helicopter over to Guantanamo. Once they get like 12 or 20 prisoners just were found, all died simultaneously here in a port prison. So I'm getting the idea that their lot number is like 20. And so it's going to go to Cuba, and then it's going to go into the United States, like to Miami or through Fort Bragg in North Carolina. And then they're going to be distributed out through the United States, to 20 hearts at a time or 12 hearts at a time. So sort of like, and I haven't figured out what the beat is to that, how often they are doing this. But I think this is definitely happening. I think that's the first 2 months there was extractions and kidnappings for this heart business. And that's why these guys, I mean, that's why they commit suicide years later, because they remember all the little faces of the little girls. They remember the faces of the wives. They don't think about the guys they killed. They think about the girls and the wives. That's what they think. And things like movies and so forth of those kind of conflict situations is what brings this up again. My dad had PTSD, so I know, there's a lot of situations in war where you're asked to do things that you never would think you could possibly do, but because you've been taught to follow orders so much, that you end up doing things like this. And it's really not the soldier's fault. It's the guy at the top who's driving this kind of CIA kill, kill, kill kind of mentality. So I hope I've made that clear. It's like this. You see a little picture of this or you see a movie like this, and where there's a heart extraction, and it snaps you back into, oh my God, I remember doing that and I remember the little girl that looked like that. A lot of times when it's facial recognition, it looks very similar or in a very similar place, similar circumstances that trigger those memories from those operations. So anyway, it's all in the 650,000 emails. I think I've said that before. Earlier this morning I mentioned that Israel, China, and Russia have all three of these emails. So all three now of these nations can selectively release emails. As Donald Trump starts saying certain things, they can selectively release an email and say, oh, well, you know, pardon me, Hillary, here's a little tidbit about the Yemeni child trafficking that we did for you, or that you did. Or here's a little bit about Lebanon, or here's a little bit about the Egyptian. Because where Netanyahu's coming from on this is Obama and Hillary, mainly Hillary, gave $8 billion of U.S. aid to buy a homeland for the Muslim Brotherhood right next to Israel in the Sinai Peninsula. And Netanyahu is like, hey, this is not security for Israel, putting a homeland right next to Israel in the Sinai for the Muslim Brotherhood. So, and that goes back to the 30-year friendship that Hillary has with the Egyptians. So, and I'll put citations in there later. But this is why the heroes here, Boyce, are so important with the child exploitation and the sex crimes. The child exploitation and sex crimes is not just going to be about Libya, and it's not just going to be about Syria. It's also going to be about Haiti. And that's why the phone records are so important, because that's going to place all the conspirators in Haiti at the same time. That's going to be important. So, as I mentioned before, this is kind of an Israeli thing with the eating the organs, more than Negev Brigade, Avi Braverman type, thing. And it's kind of the ultimate FU, it's total destruction of your family and total, et cetera, which is a kind of a sick thing, because you end up killing a lot of innocent people that have nothing to do with the situation. And back in the day, when this was happening to an Israeli village, and then the next day it was happening to a Palestinian village, maybe you could have said, oh, war. But this isn't happening. The other side isn't doing this to us anymore. They're completely pacified. And to use this for domestic tracking is the scary part of this. Now that this byproduct from the Israeli wars is being used, and I'll go back to the tracking. One more. Okay, well, maybe one more. These quantum dots are used in all countries. Now remember, the CIA is in 191 countries, I think, something like that, with resources. Any country with resources. So you can drop these quantum dots on civilian populations, and they do. So if the CIA is doing this in 191 countries, why wouldn't they do it if they established at the Denver school? Why wouldn't they do it for the United States? They can. And they are. They're putting it on cars. They're putting it on people's clothes. They're putting it on, family vehicles and so forth, like that, houses. So inside these databases are marked who's a friend. Let's say blue is friend, or red is a friend, terrorist. Okay, and this is the National Terrorism Watch List, the 2 million people. So if you're a law enforcement official here in blue, let's say, and you see, you're looking in this list, your mind is pre-made up that this is the enemy. The house is marked red, the car is marked red, all the cars are marked red in your family, etc. You are marked red. So this is the PRISM. The PRISM system comes from Planeteer. The PRISM system directly is the parent of the Planeteer system, and vice versa. This is actually the next generation PRISM system from the Edward Snowden days. So this is where I'm saying the blowback happens, not only from terrorists who've had their families murdered and so forth, now wanting to kill us, but from our own technology is coming back. Because at first it was the terrorists. Then they decided, well, we'll do the terrorists and their families. This is when the drones were bombing the weddings. Then we said, well, the friends too. We got to get rid of the friends. Well, journalists are hurting our situation, because they put out truth and information, and it slows us down. It makes things harder for us. Then you can also run your own criminal networks with this type of technology. So you can know where all your drug dealers are, all your mules are, all your enforcers. You can know where all the targets are for sex trafficking. So you can tag all the kids in an orphanage. There's a wide variety of quantum dots. I can tag people with a whole bunch of different things. I can tag my Stinger missiles. I can tag my sarin gas. I can tag my Muslim Brotherhood folks. And you get this sense of power, like, oh, I've got this Eye of God, or they call it Eye of Sauron power, that I control all this stuff. I control Muslim Brotherhood. I know where I can go for the sex trafficking anytime. Organ donors, I could traffic organ donors. And you get this power, but again, the moral compass doesn't come with this. It doesn't come in the box of Cracker Jacks. You don't get the little compass with this. And that's what this system needs, is a moral compass. It needs sunshine first to have everybody admit that this exists, with like the church hearings. But then we need to find that moral compass that Max Igan talks about. Okay, that's it for today.